Here is my RS6 GT3. And here is my RS6 engine that we need to fix. And today, my look's about to get even worse.
Something about Mat Armstrong just doesn't sit quietly in the background. And once this story starts unfolding, stopping midway almost feels impossible. From rebuilding a smashed Bentley Continental GT during the chaos of the pandemic, to building a digital empire with millions watching every move, Armstrong didn't just change careers, he flipped the game. And here's the part that really gets wild. Behind those viral rebuilds sits a lifestyle packed with luxury cars, bold investments, and unexpected risks. So how did everything come together this perfectly? Stick around, because the deeper this goes, the harder it is to look away. Mat Armstrong's journey to success. There is something almost unreal about how a simple beginning can turn into a life that looks completely different. And that is exactly what happened with Mat Armstrong. Because everything started with bikes, not cars, which already makes the whole journey feel unexpected, right? Born in Leicester in 1993, early life revolved around BMX riding, with hours spent practicing tricks, pushing limits, and chasing that next perfect landing. And at the same time spent around engines came from learning car mechanics from a father named Tony, who worked as a skilled mechanic. So two worlds quietly grew side by side, without anyone knowing which one would take over in the end. At around age 16, competitive freestyle BMX became serious, with international travel to places like France, Germany, and Dubai. And that kind of exposure at such a young age already hinted at something bigger. But then comes that question that always changes everything. What happens when the one thing that defines a path suddenly gets taken away? During a qualifying run at the BMX World Championships in Germany, an attempt at a 720 tail whip went wrong, and a shoulder dislocation changed everything in a single moment. Even though qualification came in at 16th place, which should have been a proud achievement. But what is a ranking worth when the body refuses to cooperate anymore? The injury did not just stop at that moment either, because the shoulder kept dislocating even during sleep, which made any return to professional riding almost impossible. And that kind of situation forces a hard reset, does it not? Life after that looked very different, filled with regular jobs just to stay afloat. From working at the family garage to delivering food, bartending, and even working at places like Graham Good Motors. And nothing about that phase suggested a future with millions of viewers watching every move online. Then something unexpected happened, and it did not come from a big plan or some carefully designed strategy. It came from a crash, specifically a girlfriend's Audi TT that ended up damaged. And instead of walking away from that situation, a decision was made to buy the wrecked car back from the insurance company for just £600, which sounds almost too simple to matter. But sometimes, the smallest decisions carry the biggest consequences, right? That rebuild process was filmed and shared, and that single idea slowly turned into a format that people could not stop watching, buying damaged cars and bringing them back to life on camera, step by step. Mistake by mistake, success by success. And suddenly, a YouTube channel that started back on April 7, 2013, with BMX videos began to evolve into something much bigger. Growth did not happen overnight, but consistency started to pay off. And before long, views began climbing into the millions, with total video views passing hundreds of millions by 2025, which raises another interesting thought. What makes people stay and watch long car rebuild videos for that long? Maybe it is the honesty of the process. Maybe it is the satisfaction of seeing something broken become whole again. Or maybe it is just the curiosity of how far each project can go. Income started coming in from different directions, not just ads, but brand deals, merchandise, and profits from car builds. And estimates placed total net worth somewhere between $1 and $3 million, which is a huge shift from working regular jobs just a few years earlier. A major turning point came when Richard Hammond reacted to one of the builds, and that moment brought a surge of attention almost instantly. And it makes one wonder, how often does one reaction change everything for someone? That exposure opened doors to bigger opportunities, including high-profile sponsorships, and eventually income from YouTube grew strong enough to replace traditional work completely, which led to a bold decision at the end of 2019 to leave regular jobs behind and focus fully on content creation. That moment was celebrated in a way that reflected the journey, with the purchase of a Mercedes-Benz AMG A45 and a road trip to Monaco in a Bentley, which almost feels symbolic. Going from rebuilding damaged cars to driving luxury vehicles across Europe. Looking at everything together, the path feels anything but straight, with unexpected turns, setbacks, and moments that could have easily ended everything before it even began. And that leads to one final thought. Would any of this have happened without that injury, or without that crashed car, or without that one decision to film a rebuild? Sometimes the biggest changes come from moments that seem like the lowest points, the kind you don't even realize are shaping everything until much later. And this journey quietly proves exactly that, in the most unexpected way. What started as setbacks slowly turned into something far bigger, more impressive, and almost unbelievable. Keep watching till the very end, because what follows reveals how that transformation connects directly to Mat Armstrong's luxury car collection, and it only gets more interesting from here. Mat Armstrong's luxury car collection. How does a damaged supercar become more valuable after being broken than when it was brand new? That is exactly the kind of world Armstrong operates in, where high-end restoration projects are not just about fixing cars, but about creating stories that pull in millions of viewers within weeks. Almost like people cannot help but ask, what happens next? Every single time. The whole approach starts with buying crashed or heavily damaged luxury vehicles at very low prices, sometimes shockingly low compared to their original value, and then rebuilding them step by step while recording everything for YouTube. But here is the interesting part. Is the profit really coming from selling the car later, or from the attention the video brings in? According to the pattern shown in these projects, the real value sits in the content itself, not the metal machine at the end. And that alone changes everything about how these builds are planned. Take the Bentley Continental GT as an example. How does a £150,000 luxury Grand Tourer end up being bought for only £10,000? In this case, the car came with heavy front-end damage and interior issues, yet still carried that unmistakable luxury feel, with Mulliner specification, cross-stitched seats, and chrome detailing that still looked expensive even while broken. The idea at first seemed simple: repair it for around £10,000 and bring it back to life. But how often does a restoration project actually stick to the first estimate? In reality, costs went higher than expected. And even after the rebuild, a Bentley service inspection revealed over 100 separate issues, including something as serious as a cracked engine mount that caused the W12 engine to sit tilted. At that point, anyone might ask, is this still worth it? Surprisingly, yes, because even after all that, the car was driven all the way to Monaco, showing that perfection was never the only goal. Then comes the Aston Martin Vantage, another case that raises a simple question. What happens when luxury engineering meets structural damage and insurance write-offs? This 2019 model, bought for £54,000, already had deployed airbags and structural issues, yet still carried a 500-horsepower twin-turbo V8 with just 14,000 miles. The challenge did not stop at repair work, because Aston Martin refused to sell certain parts directly due to safety restrictions, forcing approved repair routes. So how do builders get around digital restrictions on modern cars? In this case, the car was scanned as a Mercedes-Benz C63S to bypass computer locks. Adjustments followed, including KWs, suspension upgrades, wheel spacers, and quicksilver exhaust modifications costing £912. After everything, Aston Martin technicians still gave full approval, which leads to another question. How often does a rebuild reach factory acceptance after starting in such a damaged state? Now, the Lamborghini Murcielago story feels almost unreal. How does a V12 supercar end up sitting without an engine for 7 years inside a track company storage space? The engine was incomplete, missing flywheel and clutch components, and the condition was so poor that previous rebuild attempts had already failed, with the earlier mechanic later ending up in prison for armed robbery. At that point, most people would probably ask, is this even rebuildable? But deeper inspection revealed misordered cam caps, broken piston rings, and fried electronics caused by a bad jump-start attempt. Even with all of that, the rebuild still moved forward, and somehow the car returned to working condition again, which makes the whole process feel like a test of patience more than engineering. Then there is the Porsche 911 GT3 rebuild, which brings another surprising question. Is it really possible to rebuild a modern performance car in just 24 hours? The project cost £139,500, not including labor, with a team of 5 people working at about £75 per hour, adding roughly £9,000 in labor alone. The finished car was still unpainted and carried a Cat N classification. Yet the rebuild video still reached 1.7 million views within a single day. So what matters more here? The final shine of the car or the speed and drama of the rebuild itself? Finally, the Marcus Rashford Rolls-Royce Wraith project takes everything to another level. How does a luxury car originally worth around £700,000 get bought at auction for £184,000 after a crash? The vehicle had only 1,135 miles and came as a Mansory Black Badge Wraith. Armstrong added another donor car costing £90,000 and around £50,000 worth of Mansory parts, pushing the total spend to about £324,000. Even small parts carried extreme value, like side skirts costing €8,400 each, and trim pieces at €4,400. During the process, Rashford's team even supported the rebuild with spare parts and accessories. And here is the real question. What turns a simple rebuild into a global moment? In this case, Armstrong didn't just stop at rebuilding cars. There was a deeper purpose behind it all. Even signed car parts were sold, with proceeds going to Fair Share, a charity championed by Rashford, turning the whole project into something meaningful beyond the garage. But that's only part of the bigger picture. Stay glued till the very end, as things get even more interesting. Mat Armstrong's properties and real estate investments. So there is this situation where frequent travel between the UK and the United States started shaping a very specific kind of lifestyle decision. And it all began with a property purchase in Miami, valued at around $1,100,000. Now imagine that kind of decision for a moment. What really pushes someone to buy a house that far away from a main base, over 4,500 miles apart? Is it comfort? Is it convenience? Or is it something deeper tied to long-term plans? The property was not just picked randomly, because several options were reviewed around the $1 million range before the final choice was made, and the deciding factor came down to space and potential workshop use. That already raises another question. Why would workshop potential matter so much in a residential choice? The answer connects to ongoing automotive work that required long stays in the United States, especially a major rebuild project involving a Bugatti Chiron. That kind of work does not fit into short visits or temporary setups. So the Miami property became more than just a house. It became a base of operations. The idea was simple but practical. One place for living and another space designed for building and working on cars without restrictions. And when thinking about it, does it not make sense that creative mechanical work needs room to breathe, especially when dealing with high-performance machines. There was also a piece of advice from a father that seemed to stay relevant throughout the decision-making process. The advice stated that money would always be safe in a house, which adds another layer to the thinking behind the purchase. So the decision was not only about convenience or lifestyle, but also about long-term value and stability. And that leads to another interesting question. When investments mix personal comfort with practical work needs, does that create a stronger foundation or simply a more flexible lifestyle? The Miami property, therefore, became part of a broader property investment approach, where the purchase was not treated as a casual expense, but as a strategic move. The house functioned in two clear ways: first as a residence, and second as an operational base for automotive builds in the United States. That dual purpose changes how the property is understood, because it is not just about living space anymore, it is also about production space, planning space, and execution space for large-scale mechanical projects. And honestly, how many homes are actually designed with that kind of intention in mind? Back in the United Kingdom, another major development was taking place inside the workshop environment. The garage underwent a significant transformation with the installation of 3,200 premium PVC modular tiles across the entire floor. That detail alone already gives a sense of scale, but what makes it more interesting is how quickly the installation was completed. A job that normally takes around 2 days was finished in just 1 day using 8 pallets of black PVC smooth tiles. That kind of efficiency makes you wonder, how much difference can upgraded flooring really make in a working environment? The system used in the workshop also came with practical advantages, including a 10-year guarantee and the ability to handle heavy loads, spills, and high-impact mechanical work. So this was not just about appearance or comfort. It was about durability and long-term performance under pressure. And when thinking about workshop environments that deal with cars, tools, and constant movement, is it not obvious that the ground beneath everything matters more than it seems at first glance? With that kind of setup, the workshop starts to feel less like a simple garage and more like a professional-grade operating space, the kind of environment that supports expanded automotive projects, not just casual repairs or small modifications. That shift in setup naturally aligns with a growing ambition around automotive builds and content creation, where infrastructure becomes just as important as skill. And that leads to a final thought. When space, tools, and location all start working together like this, does it not signal a clear move towards something much bigger than a hobby setup? The lifestyle beyond cars. Armstrong is based in England and shares life with partner Hannah Smith, who is not just around in the background but actually shows up often in content and also helps with business and production work. And it makes one wonder, how many creators actually manage to balance personal life and business like that without things getting messy? The couple also lives with a Boston Terrier named Kevin, and somehow that dog has become a regular character in the videos, almost like part of the brand itself. Now moving into the business side of things, the scale becomes even more surprising. Armstrong has built a merchandising system that ships to more than 200 countries, which already makes one pause and think, how does a clothing and accessories line grow that far globally from car content alone? The income side is just as big, with monthly YouTube AdSense earnings reaching around $138.95 thousand US, and individual videos bringing in about $69.48 thousand US. And that is just the ad revenue part. On top of that comes brand deals, affiliate marketing, and profits from car builds, which all stack together into multiple income streams running at the same time. Then there is the merchandise side, with clothing, caps, and accessories dropping and selling out within hours, which raises another question. What kind of audience loyalty makes products disappear that fast every single time? Travel and international expansion also play a big role in this journey. Armstrong has extended his reach beyond just online content and even purchased property in Miami. And why Miami specifically? One reason seems to be the ability to run bigger operations in the United States and stay longer for major projects like the Bugatti Chiron build. That kind of move shows that the work is not just content anymore, but a global production setup that keeps expanding. Family influence also sits at the core of the success story. Armstrong's father, Tony Armstrong, played a major role in building mechanical skills from an early stage. Growing up around that kind of hands-on learning clearly shaped the confidence needed for complex automotive builds later on. Tony still appears in some of the videos, helping with diagnostics and restoration work, which makes the whole process feel more grounded and real. And perhaps one of the most meaningful moments came when Armstrong gifted Tony a rebuilt Ferrari in 2024. Moments like that naturally make anyone ask, how many people get to turn childhood lessons into a full global career that also circles back into family in such a way? With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.